you've been hearing what we, the quote-unquote research team, have all been doing, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret. You guys are all members of the research team. Every single person in this room, whether you think you're a scientist or you loved science in school, if you didn't, I apologize. My husband's a science teacher. He's an awesome science teacher. You would have loved science if you had had him. You are all part of the research team, and I'm going to tell you how you can participate in what we're doing so that you can help us progress. So I'm going to tell you about the Global PWS Registry. I know some of you who have been here at the conference before have heard about it. Welcome to all of our newbies. This is the website for the registry. Some of you have had a chance to stop by and talk with me out in the hallway, which is fantastic. Really briefly, for those of you that are new to our conference and may not have heard about it before, basically the purpose of the registry is, I use an example of a quilt. So if you think of a quilt, a beautiful, intricate story quilt, it's made up of hundreds of little panels. Every single one of you is a panel of that quilt. In order to really get a full understanding of the full spectrum of PWS, of all the symptoms, of everything that everybody's efforts, what everybody's trying, what everybody's struggling with, what everybody's being successful with, we need every single story, every single patchwork on that quilt. And that's really the goal of the registry. It's also designed to help us enroll clinical trials faster. As you heard, one of the biggest hurdles of clinical trials often is recruitment, the recruitment process. Think of the registry as a dating service. The registry is basically a mechanism by which clinical trials are looking for people that meet certain criteria. We already have all of those criteria in the registry. Boom, you're on a date. And then you guys can decide whether or not you want to progress further along and actually enroll in the clinical trial. It can also help us determine areas of unmet need, decide what research questions we want to help prioritize, all with the goal of improving standards of care and helping improve the lives of those living with Prader-Willi syndrome. This is a research study. It has what we call an ethics approval and an IRB, Institutional Review Board. Basically what that means is that a big important panel of people have reviewed the protocol and the registry and sort of put a check on the box that it is being done, all the data is being collected in an ethical way, and all the data is being stored in a safe and secure way. For those of you that may not have seen or may not have gone into the registry, it's basically web-based. It's a series of 37, soon to be 38 surveys that can be completed one by one. You can log in and out. You can save your drafts. If there's a question, oh gosh, I don't really remember what dose medication that is, I need to go and come back to it, or another child is crying or something happens, you can just save it, come back. And the really cool thing about it is that for any survey that you have completed, you individually can see the aggregate de-identified data for everybody else that has answered those questions. And one new really exciting thing is that just recently this year, the registry, for those of you that have already enrolled, now has the update feature, which I'm very excited about. So I'm going to task everybody in this room this year instead of just subsections. It's basically set up on the front end. Surveys can go really quickly for you if it's a particular area that you don't really have going on in your particular situation. Do you have any of these orthopedic issues? No, 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 you're done. If you say yes to some things, then it will pop up with some follow-up questions. So some surveys will take a little bit longer depending upon the age of your child as well as what symptoms your child may have. And one of the main priorities is that the registry really needs to represent a full demographic of Prader-Willi syndrome. So we need to make sure we're getting representation of people with different ages, people from different socioeconomic statuses, international representation, making sure ethnic diversity. As we know, PWS chances are the same for everybody around the world, and we need to make sure that we're representing that, as well as people that are doing well versus not as well, different living situations, and that may have more or less access to the current standards of care. So what I wanted to do really briefly, just to encourage you to participate, is to show you some of the things that we're pulling out. The registry has been active for about 2 years right now. As you can see, this is just some of the data. I had some people come up to me in the hallway yesterday and help me give some suggestions on what data you all wanted to see. Of the people in the registry, 80% were diagnosed before 12 months of age. If that's not your story, if you don't fall into that, let us know. We need to make sure that we're getting an accurate representation. As a lot of people have said over the course of this conference, the percentage of UPD is higher than we thought it was 10 years ago. And so again, we need to make sure that we're getting everybody's information so that we can get an accurate calculation of that. We have a lot of babies here this week, which has been really fun to see them all playing with one another. And if this is, representative of your NICU stay, if it's not, add your story to this. We also have a lot of questions about growth hormone use, when people start, how easy access has been, what different brands people are using. All of this type of information is captured in the registry. I'm going through this quickly because I've been told I have time, so if you have any questions about any of this data, please just catch me afterwards. Another mom asked me about anxiety and PWS, and so this was some data that I just pulled last night. And it does look, we all know that there's anxiety in PWS. It increases through adolescence. As of right now, this is really early data. It looks to peak at somewhere around 50% by the time they're age 10 and older. It does not seem to vary between males and females. However, there does seem to be a higher risk of anxiety or more prevalence of anxiety for those with UPD versus those with deletion. So what can we do about this? Well, we talked about this a little bit earlier. People are trying all sorts of different things: behavioral therapies, cognitive therapies, mindfulness, different types of psychological drugs. Whatever you're trying, you can put it in here. You can tell us what medications you're using. You can tell us what therapies you're using, and what's working, what's not working, if there were side effects. And that can help us determine what are some ways that we can help alleviate anxiety. The other really cool thing about the registry is that we can start trying to understand not just what physicians are reporting in the clinic, but what's happening in the real world. So we know that sleep apnea is an issue in PWS. Of those in the registry that have had a sleep study, 70% were diagnosed with some form of sleep apnea, either central obstructive or a combination of the two. So this is really helpful for us to inform the community of how important it is to go have a sleep study for your child. We have this data. We can then give it back to the community as a hard fact, like, go get a sleep study. But what we're also finding is that of those that are being prescribed CPAP, 50% of them are not using it as prescribed. That's important information for physicians to know, right? Either to help us figure out ways to encourage people, come up with ways that people with PWS will be more likely to use their CPAP, or to help physicians understand that maybe we need to come up with other alternatives. So this is what we would call sort of real world data. A clinician prescribes CPAP, they're like, great, it's all good, but we can feed back to the physicians as to how that's actually being used within everybody's everyday life. So, and I apologize for that sentence up top that was on the previous slide. As I mentioned before, the registry now has a new update feature. So everybody in this room has a job. If you're new and you're not enrolled in the registry, we'd strongly encourage you to go in and create your account and start filling out surveys. If you started your account and you got halfway through and then life happened, come back in and finish. If you were one of the super motivated people that I thanked and cheered on last year, where you're like, I did it all, I'm a champion. Well, guess what? Now you get to come back in and you get to update, because things have changed over the past year or two. Medications have changed. If your child was young, maybe they've met some new developmental milestones, or they had a new complication or a new surgery, or something's working really well for them. You can come back in and you can update all of your surveys. So with that, I will just let you know we have a lot of helpful resources. One of those is a registry Facebook page. Definitely would encourage you to join that page. And when you want to know something, ask it on the Facebook page. I can go into the registry, pull some data. We want to start reporting back to people. So the registry Facebook page is a great place where you can communicate to the community what data you want to see out of the registry. And with that, I will put up the email. All of these emails come directly to me. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I guess after, you can catch me in the hall. We need to move on.
You can take 2 questions.
Okay.
So, how often are we supposed to update the registry?
So the registry, you can go in and update it whenever you want. So what we are recommending is that people go in at least once a year. However, you can go in whenever you remember. So if if it's easier for you to go in after something has happened, you had a scoliosis surgery, you're like, oh gosh, I really want to add that in now so I can know that I did it. So we are going to encourage people, sort of remind people once a year, but it is accessible for you. Think of it as a living medical record. Right. You can print out all of your answers to everything. So it's also a way for for families to have everything in one central place, and they can print everything out and bring it to their doctor.
So as a follow-up, because half the time I'm brain fried because my child doesn't
Sure.
always sleep, and we have
Absolutely.
a million things on the to-do list. Like, can you automate like a yearly reminder? Like, hello, did you do your registry?
Right. So we can send out reminders. So one of the things within the registry is that you set. You set contact preferences within the registry. So as long as you have indicated that we are allowed to contact you directly, we can send you an email reminder. So I would encourage everybody to go in and make sure that you have clicked that button, that we can contact you directly. Other than that, the only way that we have to reach everybody is through all the through the conference and through social media and through newsletters and through clinicians, et cetera. So the contact preferences within the registry is a really important way to make sure that you're getting reminders, that you're getting updates on new data that's coming out, information on clinical trials, et cetera.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
How many registers do we have?
So currently we have 1,127. However, I will say that about half of those sort of registered and then didn't fill anything out. And I think it's just you create an account, there's an informed consent, and I think there's just a little bit of confusion and or hesitation because it's web-based and I don't have the ability to directly communicate and answer any questions. So that's something that we're working on, is trying to improve completion rates for everybody that's in there. So some surveys we have 500 people that have answered, some surveys we have 100.